Okay, here we are back again. We are working with one-step solving equations. It's just math, y'all. Here we go. Okay, so we have several examples here. I have 10 examples. Here are the first 6. I recommend that you stop the video, copy these problems down, and see if you know how to do them. If you don't know how to do them, that's fine. Go ahead and get them copied, and so that you can watch and learn as I go through them. Okay, so here we go. So now remember the first thing that we talked about when it came to solving the equation is undoing what happened. So here we go. So first problem, y is my variable. What happened to y? Well, y had 36 taken away. So we're going to undo, subtract 36. We're going to add 36. So I'm going to add 36 to this side of my equation. And so negative 36 plus 36, this right here is 0. And so this is a little equal sign. That's going to equal y. And because it says equals, what I do to one side, I also have to do to the other side. So now I'm going to do negative 25 plus 36. Now I could write it out like I did in the earlier example like this, but I don't have to. I usually use the vertical method. You can do vertical or horizontal. But remember, that's 0. That's 0. And this is going to be my answer. So negative 25 plus 36 is 11. Use your calculator if you need to. Negative 25 plus 36. Okay, number 2. My variable is the letter S. And what happened to S is S had 13 added to it. So I'm going to do the reverse of add 13, which is subtract 13. Again, I can do it vertically. This is 0. That's like a little equal sign, and so S. And then what I do to one side, I also have to do to the other side, and I have 7 minus 13, which is going to give me a negative 6. And that's my answer for that. All right, now same thing works with the fractions, but you just may need to calculate it. So here's my variable x. What happened to it? Well, x got 1/6 added to it, so I'm going to take away 1/6. Again, that's a little equal sign. That's 0. So I just have x. And what I did to one side, I also need to do to the other side. Now I'm going to have to do that addition or that work on my fractions. I can do it on my calculator. I can do it by hand. I can do it on scratch paper, but I have to do it. I have to do it. So I'm going to do it by hand. I'm going to get that common denominator. Okay, so I've got the common denominator is 6. And so now that I've got a negative and a negative, signs are the same. Add the numbers, keep the sign. So my answer is negative 5/6. Okay, same thing happens with decimals, but they happen with, you may need a calculator. I'm going to use a calculator. I don't do decimals by hand. Okay, but again, I'm going to subtract, and that gives me 0. And do it on one side to get the variable isolated. Do it on the other side to maintain my balance, to be equal. And so this other side, I've got to do this calculator, and I'm going to get negative 1.16, I think. All right, I might have to check my answer, but I'm going to move forward. Check it for me. Y'all let me know if it's wrong. Okay, so now all of these were add problems or subtract problems. If you'll look, the first one had a subtraction and we added to both sides. The other 3 started out as addition and we subtracted on both sides. Again, reverse what happened to your variable. In the first problem, 36 was taken away from my variable, so I added it back and got my variable back in its original state. And what I do to one side, I must do to the other side. Okay, so now let's look at 5 through 10. Again, stop the video if you need to finish copying these down before we get started. See what you remember. All right, now this one, number 5, this is multiplication. That is a multiplication. So that is 10 Our variable has been multiplied by 10. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide by 10. Now I am going to change the way I write it. I'm going to recopy the problem down so you can see it's in original state. And then I'm going to show you that I'm going to divide by 10. Now remember, this is a fraction divide. Looks like a fraction, but it is. And this is 1. And so there's my variable isolated. Okay. Now, what I do to one side, I have to do to the other, which I've already done. And 10 doesn't divide into 24 evenly. I'm going to get a decimal. So if you can't divide, and we've talked about this before, reduce. If you can't divide, reduce and leave it as a fraction. So this would be negative 12 over 5. And that's my answer right there. Number 6 is very strange. I don't have a number. What happened to my z? My variable is z. What happened to it? Well, it got a negative stuck on it. Well, technically, that is a negative 1. I'm going to recopy the problem. And then I'll write on it. That's a negative 1. And so z got multiplied by a negative 1. So again, reverse multiply. Divide by negative 1. And what I do to the, that's going to give me my z. And what I do to the left, I have to do to the right. And so I get negative 20 for my answer. A little bit trickier. Okay, so now this second problem, number 7, we have 1/4 x equals negative 7. This is also x over 4 equal negative 7. You can put the x next to it or you can put it on top, but do not put it on the bottom. Okay, and so what has happened to my x? Well, my x has been divided by 4. It's been divided by 4. That's what happened to it. X was divided, because remember fractions, by 4. And how do I reverse divide by 4? Well, I'm going to come in and multiply by 4. So I'm going to multiply by 4 on the right. What happens is this becomes a 1. That's a 1. 4 over 4 is 1, and I have 1x. Because that's a 1, that's a 1. That's it. And what I do on the left was multiply by 4. I have to do the same thing on the right. And I get negative 28. And so there's my answer. The variable has been isolated and everything else is on the other side. Okay, next problem. We have 4/5 x. Again, I can put the x on top just like that. And to get rid of this, well, this is multiply by a fraction, right? And the opposite of multiplying by a fraction is dividing by a fraction. Well, if you remember, divide by a fraction is the same as multiplying by reciprocal. Now, if you go look at your notes from multiplying and dividing fractions, you'll see that. So if I multiply by the reciprocal, okay, so let's look at that. Multiply by the reciprocal. Multiply by the reciprocal. So I multiply by the reciprocal. Well, there we go. That's going to give me 20 over 20x, and you know that's 1. So it worked. I got x by itself. And what you do to the left, you also have to do to the right. So to the right, I multiply by 5 over 4. And I'm going to get 80 over 4. Which when I simplify that, I get 20. So that's my answer there. Pretty sure that's right. Okay, y'all let me know if it's wrong, okay? All right, decimals must use a calculator. And I'm probably going to have to round here. And I didn't tell you what I wanted to round to. But I have 3.8m, that's negative. And so again, they are multiplications going on. So I'm going to divide. And when I divide, again, that gives me that 1. and that gives me my variable by itself. 1m is just m. And then I have to use my calculator to divide. And I don't know how quickly I can get this calculator to come up. And I'm going to do 44.46 divided by negative 3.8. And I'm going to get a negative 11.7. Okay, using your calculator. All right, number 10, last one. Again, I can put the x on top. And again, just like the problem above it, dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So if I multiply by the reciprocal, that's going to give me negative 20 over negative 20x, which is just x. Okay, because 20 over 20 is 1, and negative divided by negative is a positive. And again, this is an equation. What I do to one side, I've got to do to the other. And that's going to give me 10 over 20, and that's going to reduce to negative, there we go, x is negative 1/2. All right. If I made mistakes, y'all send it to me. I did go through pretty quickly. So if I made any mistakes, let me know. Okay? It's just math. You can do it.